Public hearing is now called to order at 6 on Tuesday, June 8th of 2021. This hearing is being held as required by the provisions of Chapter 1, Section 40 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, an act relative to the protection of the wetlands, as most recently amended. The notice of the time and place of this hearing was published in the Advocate on June 3rd of 2021. It was also posted in the town clerk's office. Persons wishing to be heard will be called in the following order, and I need to let you know, as we always do, that this is being recorded for future broadcast. Members of the commission that are present tonight are Richard Pimentel, me as the chair, Ryan Resendiz, Heidi Pelletier, and Everett Filla. In terms of staff for the town, Merrilee Kelly is the conservation agent, and Joanne DeMello is senior clerk. And also here on behalf of the town, I see Pat Hannon, who's park health agent, and there may be somebody here representing the town in a legal sense. And if so, you can give us a wave. If not, let's get on with it. So first, we have minutes for approval from the May 11, 2021 meeting. Joanne sent those out recently. I know, Rick, you've had a chance to look at those. I cannot vote on those. I was not present. But anybody who was present, if you'd like to make a motion to accept those as presented, I would welcome that. Looks like a motion from Ryan. Do we have a second? Second from Rick. Okay, do we have any further discussion?
No.
Okay. For those in favor who are present, Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
I have to abstain. I was not present. Heidi?
Yes.
Everett? Everett, how do you vote on that?
Yes.
Okay, Ryan?
Yes.
It was unanimous with one abstention. Agent Kelly, do we have any meeting mail?
No mail today.
Okay, nothing new. We have nothing under old business. Under new business.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You're a little delayed, but we can hear you. So the new business, and for reasons of the town not having the Mullen rule, this is here under new business, even though we've certainly heard this topic before. We have an NOI, PJ Keating Company, 72 South Main Street, file number SE001-0558. A notice of intent was filed by PJ Keating Company for property located at 72 South Main Street, map 15, lots 15 through 18. The applicant proposes to grade the eastern slopes of the existing silt piles located at the rear of the PJ Keating quarry property. Applicant is represented by Douglas Vigneault of PJ Keating Company. Plan name is Site Plan of Land at 72 South Main Street in Acushnet, Mass, dated December 21 of 2020. Mr. Vigneault, I turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, commission members. If I may, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just go through a couple of our consultants, our experts and whatnot, and present some information and some of the discussions that have occurred between our wetland expert and the towns. But prior to getting into that, I just wanted to ask if Luke Legier, our counsel, had any questions concerning procedural matters.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. First of all, let me just say thank you to the commission members and to Ms. Kelly for working cooperatively with us to find a way to renotice the hearing so that we could move this forward as quickly as possible. As you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman, the fact that Acushnet doesn't have the Mullen rule put us in a position where we didn't have a quorum anymore. So we just wanted to make sure we got that taken care of before we proceeded. And on that score, I just want to confirm that this hearing has been properly noticed. I just haven't seen any of the butter notifications or newspaper notifications. So before we get going, want to confirm that that's.
Yes, that's been done. We notified all the abutters again and put it in the paper in the Advocate on June 3rd.
Great, thanks. If I may, Mr. Chairman, you just ask that Ms. Kelly or someone on your end just email me a copy of those notices just for our files so I can just have them.
Marilyn, Joanne,
Absolutely.
is that something?
Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Chairman, with your permission. I'd like to ask James Tatro, our erosion control specialist certified, to walk through his most recently revised plan that has been provided to the commission electronically, and hopefully the commission has seen that. It's just a sort of a revised rendition of previous submittals with a berm included and whatnot. But James, if you can walk through that for the commission, that would be great.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, may I share my screen?
If you given permission by the town, please do.
Let's see.
Nick, does he have that capability?
Yep, he has it.
Okay, all yours, Mr. Tatro.
Not sure which of these I'm supposed to hit. Can you see that?
Not yet.
No.
Back away from this. All right, land to shelter. Well, maybe I'll skip the oh, here it is, share. Okay.
Yep, now it's visible.
Okay, now I've got to, I apologize, I've got to reattach my plan. I apologize. Let's do this. Is that visible now?
Somewhat.
Yeah, just if you can make it allow you to speak and rotate the view.
Okay, I just did that. I think it's your second, the screen is a second or so behind.
If you can maximize, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to this. There we go. And how's that? It's a bit better. I apologize for the slowness in getting to this point. So what you see before you is a plan dated April 23rd of 2021. And this plan shows proposed regrading of the silt slopes to a 2-to-1 slope grade with the toe of that slope completely outside of the buffer zone. And in fact, just off the toe of that slope also is another gap, is a stone dike here, which you see in red that I'm tracing the arrow cursor along. And so what we propose to do is take the existing slope, dig it back to this 2-to-1 slope grade and apply first 2 steps. First a organic growth media, and then after that has dried a couple of days, the Flexera stabilization that is sprayed on. And we would be applying the Flexera media to the slope at the application rate allowed for or given for a 1-to-1 slope, even though this is a 2-to-1. So we'd be extra conservative in that matter. And we would maintain a dike at the top of this such that any runoff into the cell over here where I'm running the cursor back and forth would be captured and would not simply be flowing over this new slope. So it just in quick summary, what we're proposing is a 2-to-1 slope. We're proposing even the toe of it outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. We're proposing to stabilize it in 2 steps. First, application of organic media, because the silt material itself is not really suitable for growth on its own. We'd apply organic media, and then after a 2-day dry period, we apply the Flextera surface treatment, again at the application rate recommended for a 1-to-1 slope, even though this is 2-to-1. And I just want to quickly touch on at one of the previous meetings, there was a discussion of, well, why not go to a flatter slope still, a 3-to-1 or something. And the argument against that is that if you went a 3-to-1 slope, for instance, you'd actually be increasing the area of slope that you're trying to protect, that you're trying to stabilize by 50%. So there's actually a significant downside to going to that 3-to-1 slope. And again, frankly, the material that's been in place has shown that its natural angle of repose is 1-to-1 or perhaps even steeper. So one of the reasons you might normally consider going to an even flatter slope than, say, the 2-to-1 is if the material is not stable in the range of a 1-to-1 or even 2-to-1 slope. And in fact, this material, yes, it has been acted on by water and wind and has shed some material, but of its own friction characteristics, it is actually stable at that 1-to-1 slope. So the 2-to-1 we propose will be reasonable as far as how much area we need to protect, and we will be protecting it with application of a surface treatment at the application rate actually prescribed for a 1-to-1 slope. So we'll be conservative in that way. Again, this plan is a revision from the initial plan that we submitted, which was not pulling all of the grading out of the buffer zone. So now again, this plan, the buffer zone line, I'm going to try and trace it here, is this long dash, short dash, black line that I'm running the cursor up right now. So this new slope would be entirely outside of it. And that in a nutshell is what we're proposing. 2-to-1 slope, being conservative about how we're going to protect the new surface, and at all times keeping a dike on the west such that any flow from the west side does not go over the slope, but is captured and just contained in this area here in the cell. So I'll just leave it at that and take any questions that you may have. I actually have, I was allowed to go first by Mr. Vigno because I actually have another meeting also to go to, and that's why I sort of am getting to be first in the queue. But I'll try and answer any questions that you have while I'm here.
Hey, Adrian Kelly, any questions from you?
How tall does it end up being if you use a 2-to-1 slope?
It's the same height as is now. It's essentially a elevation 102 top and around elevation 60 bottom. It's 42 feet. It varies a little bit from here to there, but that's a typical of this slope. 42 feet now, approximately 42 feet in the future.
Wow. Okay, and there's a permanent barrier keep it out of the buffer zone. You said it was stone?
Correct. You see on the screen where I'm running the cursor now, you see in red an area that's hatched with a stone representation. That's a 3-foot high stone dike, which is primarily going to be composed of 12-inch trap rock, but with smaller stone at the bottom. And the intention is that this dike capture if there is some sloughing of material or some loss of material, some erosion, that this dike will capture material and prevent it from going even into the buffer zone. Excellent.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, what are all these circles that are in the shaded area?
Are you talking about, for instance, those are, unfortunately, I'm not zoomed in close enough. Those are proposed contour labels.
Oh, I see. Okay.
If I was zoomed in about twice as big, you'd be able to read them all. One
right,
other
that's fine.
thing I want to just quickly note too is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, but I'm tracing cursor right now is a proposed wattle and silt fence line that, correct me, has this already been installed?
Yes, that's in place.
Okay, so just to get an idea, again, this was basically at the toe of slope now is where this has been installed to prevent any further erosion into the wetland. And in the future, instead of, again, toe of slope being where I've got the cursor now, the toe of slope will be back over here outside of the buffer zone.
So how do we keep it from blowing into the wetlands? Just this organic material that you're going to put on it is going to hold it down?
Well, the idea, Carly, is that the organic material just provides a medium on which the Flexstera can, grasses and fescue can grow. So because if you sprayed that, in effect, everybody knows the verb hydroseed. If you hydroseeded this slope, you would get some take, but because there's not enough organic material there, you really would not get a consistent or thorough covering of the surface. And so the first step of our proposed spraying on the surface of organics is really just to give a media for the second step, the grasses and fescues to grow on.
I see. And where would new silt go? This stuff is continuously generated, right?
That may be a question for somebody else on the team. I'm not sure what to say.
Yeah, there'd be no more silt placement in this location at all.
Okay.
I guess we should say that any future placement of silt will be outside of jurisdictional areas.
Great. Okay.
And to clarify, Mr. Tatro, you said once the first application of organic earth media is applied, you said Flexstera comes on 2 weeks later?
2 days. We say, and in fact, it's in the construction sequence here. What I say is that after spraying the organic media on the slope to give the later grass and fescue something on which to grow, you probably have to wait 2 days because you don't want to spray and have a somewhat saturated surface and then immediately spray again. You want to have that little bit of drying so that the second spraying, you don't get sort of runoff in effect from saturated areas.
And for those of us that are new to this talk, can you explain a little bit what exactly Flexstera is?
Flexstera is a sprayed-on medium. Your choices in the case of stabilizing slope like this are essentially to have rolled mats, erosion control mats, or a spray-on media, which is applied at an application rate as directed for at least that steepness of slope. What it is actually, in addition to the seed, it's largely composed of wood fiber that's been recycled for this purpose, and there's other chemicals in there. And this medium is a choice, especially where slopes are very large and where you think you might have a difficult time consistently getting. One of your worries with the erosion control mats is getting them always pressed perfectly to the surface. Because if you have an erosion control mat that the slope is not a perfect, smooth contour, and the mat is attached to the slope at one point, and then the slope dips a little bit, and there's an area where the mat is not touching the slope, you don't get a consistent growth of vegetation underneath that. And so the sprayed on, the flexible growth medium has become an alternative in situations like this where you have a very large area and where, because the nature of how large it is, you would worry about getting a consistent, thorough application application of the mat. When you spray on the media, you know that that media is on the surface, whereas the mat, you have to worry a little bit about, is there a, little bit of a bump? The surface of what's been created is going to be consistently attached and touching the surface as it, is. Whereas, again, the sprayed on media, is on the surface in all areas.
My question is, never seen this before. How is the spraying done? Is it a vehicle? Is it something in between?
It actually, again, to bring back the verb hydroseed, it's the same sort of a thing. It's the same sort of folks who would have a hydroseed spraying truck would have this is just a different media that they're going to spray.
That I can picture.
Yep.
Any other questions from the commission members or from Agent Kelly?
Do you know who's going to do the work?
I don't know if there's, Doug, is there a specific party that has done hydroseeding for PJ Keating in this area, or?
Yes, there is, and it's usually and Rob can speak to this as well. It's usually a union operation that we have dealt with, that we do a lot of work with on various jobs throughout the Commonwealth, on a lot of our construction jobs. So, I mean, as far as who's going to do the work, we're going to be doing the work with regards to the removal and the the sloping and whatnot, contouring. That'll be PJ Keating or a subcontractor that we will hire, but that will be under our purview. As far as the hydro seeding and those types of things, similarly, we would hire that out. We don't have that in house. So the short answer is, Ms. Kelly, we have not identified specifically who would do the work at this point yet.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, sure. We could just bring what we know, but as far as the nuts and bolts with regards to that is concerned, is something that we need to figure out as a company. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Merle, any other questions from you?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission? Hearing none, I'll call on Mr. Hannon, who has his hand raised.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Pat Hannon. I'm here tonight on behalf of the Soil Board and the Board of Health. And I'm just learning tonight that the plan has been amended. And asked the board to put together the plan. So they make it.
Pat, you might have to repeat. Pat, you might have to repeat what you just said. You were breaking up. It was hard to hear.
I'll get a little closer to the microphone. How's that? Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I'm here on behalf of the Soil Board and the Board of Health tonight, and have not had an opportunity to review this revised plan. And I would give an opportunity to review the plan and give comments.
I hate to do this to you, Pat, but I missed your comment about, we heard you say this is your first time seeing the plan. After that, you broke up again, and we want to be clear for the minutes.
Yeah. The Soil Board and the Board of Health would like the opportunity to review the plan before you make a decision.
Okay. Having heard from Mr. Hannon, is there anybody else on this call who has questions, comments, or anything for Mr. Vigno or anybody else from PJQ?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out that while I've spoken, Mr. Karen was also going to speak, and maybe I should just stop sharing my screen and so,
Fine.
there you go.
Mr. Karen, would you like to address the meeting?
Yeah, I just want to update you on the restoration act or procedures we've been discussing. I believe at the last hearing we had discussed how we had delineated the areas where there's been recent deposition of those fines, and that we were going to meet with Mike Toohill, your consultant, to both review that and to review what we were proposing for restoration measures. We had a site walk with Mike and Merrilee, looked at that, delineation of the deposition, and looking at conditions in the field, reviewed the restoration plan we had. What we found with that mapping of the, let me see if I can figure out how to share a screen. I'm sorry, I am. Here, there we go. I'm having the same trouble James did, trying to get this zoomed out at the right scale.
Visible to us.
Well, I'm just working with, oh, here we go. Okay, I got it working. So we mapped out the limits of where there's been recent deposition on the plan. And you can see one thing that has been interesting me and intriguing me is that most of this is how much the wetland expanded since the 2009 delineation. And it's expanded onto these areas where the sediment's been deposited. So it seems like that, even though we're raising the elevation with that sediment, the wetland species seem to be expanding onto it. And it's hard to look at the soils in those situations because the sediment is, those fines are gray, just like a hydric soil is. So it's, a lot of that's based on the vegetation through there. So like I said, most of that recent deposition has been on new wetlands, not the old wetlands. What we did was it came up with, and this based on what we discussed before, I think we all have concerns about just going wholesale into the wetlands and picking out these materials and causing all kinds of additional disturbance in the wetlands and ripping out vegetation to get these materials out. So what we have proposed is there's one area where we have the deposition in this area that's kind of cross-hatched in blue, where the wetlands is expanded outside of the tree line into an area where there's really no natural vegetation. It's all species that have established on the sediment. So in that area, we're just proposing to excavate that down to the elevation of the adjacent wetland and revegetate that with a mix of herbaceous vegetation, trees and shrubs. And we gave Mike a detailed restoration sequence listing what the steps we take to do that with the plants that would go in. On the other, there's basically three other areas, one up here, one adjacent to that, what I call the complete restoration area, and another section down in here where that sediment is out beyond the tree line, where we want to monitor what happens. A lot of places out there are seeing some.
Chuck, can I stop you for a minute? There are a couple of microphones on this call that need to be muted that are bringing into the presentation. So anybody that's not presenting right now, please put yourself on mute. Thank you. Mr. Karen, floor is yours.
Thanks. Let me get my train of thought back. So in these three areas where in the tree line, we're seeing in some areas a significant amount of herbaceous wetland vegetation establishing on top of that. So there is some chance that these areas are going to revegetate on their own. And I think we discussed this at a couple of hearings previously. So the idea is to monitor these over a couple of growing seasons to basically see what happens. And if we get wetlands vegetation reestablished on these areas, we might not have to go in there and disturb the wetlands. If we find select areas or these areas wholesale not coming back to the wetlands vegetation, then we go back in and remove the sediment back down to the original soil surface and get plants reestablished in those areas that get disturbed. So that both the commission and the applicant have some comfort level of how this would proceed. What I gave Mike was a pretty detailed plan showing where we would have sample plots in these areas, describe the procedures we would use to monitor what vegetation is growing in those areas, and specified some standards to decide whether or not we'd have to go in and restore these areas. I know those have gone to Mike for review. I don't know if he's gotten back to the commission with his comments and thoughts on that. But that's basically where we are with coming up with a restoration plan.
Mr. Karen, I know there's, and Marilee, I'm on to calling you to chime in on this. I know there's been discussion about some areas that, as you just said, Mr. Karen, we should give the opportunity to revegetate as opposed to go in and dig and cause more damage. And we've had a chance to look at some of those plans. Marilee, do you want to comment further on that? And you're still on mute, Marilee.
Sorry. I think it's a good plan overall. I just would want to make sure that that we stayed with it long enough to see if things are going to revegetate or not, and get them restored if they don't grow on their own, But it'll probably take more than a year to see what happens with things growing in those spots.
I don't remember all the details of the review that Mr. Toohill did, so I'll ask you, Agent Kelly and Mr. Karen, was there a monitoring plan in there for this? And if so, what was it?
Yes, there is a monitoring plan with that. There we go. So we came up with like I said, a whole bunch of plots in these areas we measure the vegetation, and came up with, what percentage of the area would have to be covered with in relation to what, if we want to monitor both the areas of sedimentation and the adjacent wetland. So see if we're getting similar cover in those areas. So basically it had time frame of looking at these over 2 years. It's possible some areas in the first year would have enough vegetation that came back. Excuse me, we could say those are, looking like they're headed in the right direction. There are others that if they fall short of those percent covers, we'd come back in for a second growing season. And at the end of the second growing season, either they would make the cut that we don't have to restore them, or we would then implement the restoration sequences. One thing we have to do though is we really need to begin this after those piles are moved back, so we're not potentially, we want to make sure any disturbance and deposition is over and done with before we start trying to monitor how they're recovering.
So is there any section visible on this plan, and I direct this to both of you, that would warrant immediate removal of anything that's blown or washed in?
Yeah, there is one section that,
Well, so you just put yourself on mute.
you have one section, don't you, Chuck, that's prime for replanting and taking out the sediment. Isn't that the lower section down here?
That was that blue hatch. I can get back to it.
Yeah.
Oops, that's not it. Sample. That's this blue hatch section I talked about where I'm calling that the complete restoration area. That's outside the tree line. There's nothing of any real value that's growing on it, even though it's wetlands vegetation. So that's the area we were going to just automatically restore.
Right.
And I wouldn't do that until we get so we don't have any, we don't want to go and restore it and then have disturbance from the activities to get the pile moved. So I wouldn't go ahead and do that until we have the pile moved back either.
Right.
So even if you're saying wait until the pile gets moved and then go in there and do the work, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I'll turn my microphone up a bit, sorry. Okay, thank you, Mr. Karen. Anybody else questions for Mr. Karen?
No.
Mr. Vigno, are there any other presentations from your team that we should hear?
No, I don't believe so, Mr. Chairman. I think that it's a good presentation by our consultants, and Chuck will continue to be in discussions with Mike Toohill from Conoco. Move on from there. So no, nothing specific. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hannon, as an employee of the town, did you have any final questions before we move on this topic?
No, Mr. Chairman, that was a good presentation.
Thank you. All right, so we have a request from Mr. Hannon, who's representing both soil and health, for them to review the plans before we vote on them. We've gone this long, so I'm okay with another 2 weeks of, giving them the chance to do this, but we will vote on this in 2 weeks, whether planning or soil has had a chance to review it or not. So that being, and apologize, I periodically put myself off camera just because anytime screen share happens, my audio gets very crackly and I have a hard time hearing things. So with that being said, I'll entertain a motion to continue for 2 weeks to the next meeting, which will be the 22nd, and then we will vote on it then. And we are moving to continue to allow soil and planning to review the plans presented by the team from PJ Keating.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may ask, it's surprising to me, working right next door to Marilee, that these plans haven't been shared. So how is Mr. Hannon going to get? I mean, he can see these electronically, just as we've provided to the commission. It's no different.
I'll let somebody who works Marilee or Pat.
Right, but I haven't sent them to Pat, so I will first thing in the morning.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, just to close the loop, I work for both boards. I don't make their decisions.
I heard you say you work for both boards, and I didn't hear the rest.
I'm not their decision maker. So they need a chance to look at the plans and give feedback.
Understood. So somebody on the commission make a motion to continue to the meeting of June 22nd. Thank you,
Second.
Robert. Do we have a second? Thank you, Rick. All right, going across as I see you on my screen. Heidi, how do you vote? Everett? That's a yes. Rick?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you all from Peter Keating.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission.
We will see you.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you all.
Okay, on to the discussion part of the agenda. We'll start with 4 Wilfred Lane. We have an enforcement order update. I can get that started. So we did a site visit on Saturday, talked with Mr. Addo, the owner of the property, and we discussed where he will remove any soil that was brought in and fill. I have not had a chance to download photos that I took, but there is a clear line of trees that in many ways mimic what to us looks like the wetland line. And there is a buffer zone area in which Mr. Addo will remove fill, he will remove soil. He will file an RDA for that, and he's also going to file an RDA for the patio that is there in the buffer zone in front of his house. So, and if need be, Merrily, you and I can work together to provide the wording for that for him. He seems keen to get this filed and underway. And then we can vote on it. Or anybody else on the commission wants to comment on our site visit Saturday or any other part of that discussion?
Hello.
Eric, put yourself on mute. Really, any questions from you about that visit on Saturday? I know you weren't available.
I'm curious about where he's gonna put this stuff. You know, a lot of it, it's not just soil, it's also trash and construction debris and stuff. Doesn't that have to go to a particular landfill?
That's a good question, and that's the kind of thing we can have him specify on the RDA.
Okay.
Also,
Rick, go ahead.
yeah, how quickly does he have to get that RDA filed? I mean, is that something he should be doing already pretty immediately, or?
Ideally, we would see it at the next meeting.
Oh, at the next meeting. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Merrily, any other questions or details he should put in that RDA? So where this stuff is going to go, because there is soil and there's, and as was just mentioned, there's also brick and those kinds of things.
Right, right. No, I think it'll be obvious when he gets when he gets it all out, you know, like how deep he's supposed to go and that sort of thing. I think that will be obvious, you know. And I've heard there's trash in there as well. So, like I said, I'm just concerned that we get rid of it.
It's you know, closer to the house, the actual trash.
Yeah. Okay. And Mr. Addo is okay with me stopping by and checking on his progress?
He did say stop by anytime.
Oh, good.
And see what
Great.
I know we have a neighbor who may have a question, but I want to give commission members a chance to comment the question first. Hearing none, I apologize, sir, for forgetting your last name, but what's on the screen is Ellen's iPad, so. Floor over to you if you have a question or a comment.
Yes, I have questions. One,
And,
thanks for
for
coming.
the record, would you, could I have you state your name again, please,
Yeah,
for the record, sir?
not a problem. 2 Wilford Lane, Barry Montallo.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for coming by. I saw you come by the other day and you did the search of it and stuff like that.
But it pissed him off more.
You guys just made him mad. You think you did something good, you did not. This has been going on for a long time. He went out and bought 12 trees and stuffed them all in front of my property. His property actually, when I had it surveyed and he had it surveyed, comes across my entire driveway. He owns my driveway
And my whole front yard.
and the whole left side of my front yard. You made him mad. He thinks he's nice. He's not a nice man. He doesn't care about it at all. How much trash is inside here? Truckloads, truckloads and truckloads and truckloads. My property goes to the back of that step, that fill, and it's right there. Seeping into the water, through my waterways, through everything. And right now, all I've gotten was, walkway and tell him that he's gonna have to take it out. No, he's gonna take it out. That's all chemical, whatever. Who knows what's inside there? It came from Pico. You guys, I understand. You went there and you talked to him. You don't understand what he does after when you leave. He's gonna be nice to you. That's the way he is. He's a prison guard. He's got the mentality of that. He's gonna be nice, and then after that, he's just a miserable person, like a prisoner. Because that's the way he is to us.
He's threatened us.
He's threatened us. He's parked his car on the front of my property. You looked at the property. You look at the right-hand side of it. He parked his car on there for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. There's nothing to say about parking cars on lawns.
We've been here 18 years.
That's
By the way,
my wife. Just
We've been
so-
here 18 years and never had a problem until this gentleman moved in. Now, I don't know what happened 25 years ago when this house was built.
But it was illegally built.
It was illegally built and somebody in the town allowed it, and I have the percussion
If
of
you
it.
go to the site plan, you will see that the site plan doesn't even come close to what's here. The site plan is totally different. I've gone to the city hall multiple times. I've tried to find everything I could do on this property, and it doesn't even come close to it. So now I have on the corner of my house, I have a tree 16 feet from the corner of my house, a whole line of them, all the way across, right up to my walkway and out to the whole street.
Part of my walkway, I don't even own. The driveway, I don't own.
We own 5% of the driveway, and he owns the rest. You guys think this is nice to do? He's not going to do it. He's not going to make it happen. The water is actually contaminated. It's in the ground, and if it's gone through into my waterways, that's to be looked at. It shouldn't be just not going by. Don't knock on and just say, "Hey, there you go." He's not.
I mean, you guys have been at him for how long now? This
Yeah,
has been going on?
You've been asking him to do this, do
Well,
this, do this, and do
Which
this.
is why we ended up having town council approach him and take our case to him. And he's come back to us and saying, all right, what I got to do to get this dealt with. So we get more paperwork filed. It makes it easier for us to stay on his case to get it done. Because now there's paperwork and lawyers have gotten involved as well. There are parts of this where, where I understand it's awful for you, it's inconvenient. There's, the property line stuff that's outside of our jurisdiction. I know you know that. I can't help you there, and we can't, but.
Yeah, there's
we can
nobody.
certainly-
Who do I go to in the town and say, hey, guess what? Someone messed up 25 years ago. All I can do is now go for an adverse possession of the property. Who messed up on this? Who okayed it to have the site plan have it is, and then all of a sudden the house built in the opposite direction of the house. The corner of the last stake that goes into the woods is actually on my leaching field.
That's a great question. I wish I had a good answer for you.
I don't know either.
And I don't,
I would love to. I would love to someone to come to me and say, hey, we're gonna look at this and we're gonna take care of it. I got nobody. So guess the next thing,
And I bet
possible
you
thing,
every-
the next possible
and I
thing,
bet you-
sell it. Who's gonna watch this property?
Yeah.
So I'm
And I
stuck.
bet you
So we're stuck
everybody that was
here.
part of that decision doesn't work for the town anymore, I'm certain.
No,
Yeah, and
no. And
that's
the people that
hard.
lived here before that I bought, I should have been more vigilant and seeing what I was looking at.
We weren't
And
told.
I wasn't seeing that, and I wasn't told that was actually like that,
And no one would ever.
you know? Because if it was, I wouldn't have been here.
I would have never bought it.
Huh? I agree with you. No one would ever expect that to happen.
So what you think you're gonna do to this guy? It's not even nothing. You're not even gonna do anything to him.
So
He doesn't care.
if it's wetlands, that's the trees that are set between him and me, that he's filled, because it used to be a stream when I first moved in here 18 years ago, because my kid used to play in there with the kid down in the other corner next to Mr. Addo. They used to play in the stream because they were children. And so now it's dried up, of course. And so if that's all wetlands, isn't there supposedly some kind of buffering zone that should be put up that nothing can be used?
Well, the buffer zone is the natural barrier, and that's where we're having him pull stuff out. When we were there Saturday, we could see an area that was certainly wetter than the rest.
It was, yeah.
Some of the fill's coming out of there. And, if we investigate and we find that there's flow that should be restored, then we can get into that.
The border goes all the way to my drop to where my cars are parked. If you look on the paperwork, the borders goes all the way across. It's wet all the way across right into it. And now what do we got? Trees. That's what I'm living with.
So now we just
Yeah.
planted
He's
12
out. My alarm
Aphrodite.
goes off every couple of minutes when I'm at work. My ring goes off because he's outside digging freaking holes. Then the car gets parked there. The other weekend was the truck.
And then we used to maintain that for 18 years.
Yeah, for 18 years, I cut that. I mowed it. I took care of it.
And there's a fire
I
hydrant,
cultivated it.
and the fire hydrant, you can't even see now because we used to maintain and cut it back. So if there was a fire, God forbid, there's a fire on Wilford Lane, you ain't gonna find the fire hydrant now.
It's inside the prickers. You ain't gonna see it. You can barely see it now.
Yeah, I wish, this.
I can't see you guys being nice to this guy. I can't see you being nice to him.
There's the parts of it we can, we try to be professional with him like we're professional with everybody else in every approach or violation or situation. And when we voted 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, whatever it was, not only to fight, when he did not follow the enforcement order, when we voted, that's when we got town council involved and bringing the town, I wouldn't call bringing town lawyers into it being nice to anybody. But we still have to try to be professional to see if he's going to get this work done. And if need be, we'll get the lawyers involved again. I'm more of a proponent of, using honey to get the flies than vinegar. And it doesn't mean that there's a quick answer to this, but we have a paper trail, video trail, that shows we're covering our bases, and it may take a while, but we're going to get that buffer zone issue rectified.
This is your second walkthrough, and have you seen any results?
And there may be 2, 3, 4, 5 more. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's
It's not gonna
entirely
happen.
possible.
I think the water should be tested.
We're
I
prepared for
think
that.
it should be looked at. If that water's going into mine, then my apple trees that are in the back are now sucking on that water, and I'm eating them apple trees through my pear trees too. Is that right? If they're contaminated because he put much inside the ground, it's not fair to me. But it's okay. Just hey, here you go. Dig it up, make it look good. No, it's not going to. He's gonna He's gonna park 50 cars on you like he did when he had a party a little while ago.
Well, we can stay on this case to have stuff removed, and as stuff gets removed, it takes away whatever might be washing into the soil. So with that being said, is there anybody else in the commission that has want to add any level of information to our visit from Saturday.
No.
Okay, I have pictures that I will download and send to Marilee. So she has them, and we'll get this RDA drafted and.
What's an RDA?
A request for determination of applicability. It's not common for us to have a handwriting one, but if we want to control the language that's in it, then we can certainly help with that. And I think in this case, for us to control the language that's in this paperwork is a good idea. Especially with a person who's probably not, he's not going to hire a wetlands professional to write it for him. So if we're going to control the narrative, then we can draft out the language.
So I have to live with the trees in my front yard 15 feet from my corner of my home?
If that's where the property line is, unfortunately, that's the ugly reality of the situation. And somebody 20 plus years ago, messed it up for you.
And there's nobody I can go to.
Property line stuff we can't do anything about.
You can't. Well, who can?
In this case, no, we can't.
Nobody in the town will. Nobody will touch it.
I don't know. I don't know if there's anybody on.
That's what I do. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what to do. Sell it. It's the only thing I can do. Take a loss.
Yeah. Everett,
I have one comment to Mr. Montello. I think he needs to hire a lawyer and dig back into the history of how the place was developed. It's the property line, that's his ball. I mean, we're trying to help him with the wetlands thing, but we can't change a property line. He needs to get a legal assistance.
Yeah. Which unfortunately means money.
Yeah, I've already hired an attorney. The attorney already has it in their hands. I'm already filing for adverse possession against him.
Okay.
So I have no choice.
No, you didn't, clearly. Mr. Hannon.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Board of Health, we are going to be starting an enforcement action at number 4 Wilfred Lane. It's not just dirt, it's not just concrete, it's solid waste. We have information that this material may actually have come from an industrial site in New Bedford. We haven't reason to believe that the soil might be contaminated. So whatever your commission is going to do, I hope that we can synchronize this so that this dirt doesn't wind up somewhere else in the town of Acushnet. And through our enforcement action, that this winds up at a licensed landfill. And the company that delivered this to this site knows better. And they're currently under another enforcement action and under a cease and desist from the soil board for their site at Middle Road. So this is a bigger problem than just somebody trying to make his parking space bigger. And I would tell you this is going to be an expensive problem to get rid of all of solid waste. So we can't help Mr. Montello with his property line. We can certainly help him as far as getting the solid waste out, getting the dirt out. The Board of Health can require that the groundwater be tested. The Board of Health can require that he hires an engineer. And if all roads lead to that, we are prepared to do that. I've heard from Selectman Gaspar, Selectman DeRoche brought this up at the Selectmen's meeting last night. The chairman of the Board of Health called me about this, and everybody, including yourselves, are interested in seeing this get rectified quickly.
Thank you for that new information. The cleaner, the better.
Thank you. Someone's working. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And it's not a dig against you guys. You guys are doing your best. You're saying it's not an easy job, but it's just we're living through hell right now. We have to deal with him every day.
The trees he's planting in the buffer zone. He should get permission from to work in the buffer zone. And there should be trees that go along with what should be there, not just, you know, something decorative that's gonna die 6 weeks from now. But anyways, that's what I saw when I was there the other day.
Thanks, Pat. Okay. For the comment, for Wilfred Lane, we're gonna move on to the next property then. Thank you, Mr. Montello.
Thank you very much.
So next we have 21 Evergreen Drive violation update. So this property has a vernal pool in the back, an isolated land subject to flooding. In the last meeting, we had recommended that we instruct the engineer for the property, Mr. Koska, to do replication at the end of the ILSF that's away from the house. I have not had any communication with Mr. Koska. I don't know if anybody from the Conservation Office has, or if Mrs. Fernandez has any questions for us, because I see the name Sue on the screen. And I'm going to assume that's Mrs. Fernandez, but before you comment, Sue, I'm going to go to our agent first. Merle, any questions or comments about this?
Yes, Mike came in today, Mike Koska, and he's got an existing conditions plan all done, and he was looking for an older plan of the development to do, to get the topography, to do calculations for the ILSF, for the isolated land subject to flooding, because it's a quarter-acre foot per, for 6 months, I think, that it needs to be wet. So he was trying to figure out you know, how to do the calculations to see how much replication has to be done. So he's working on that, but he didn't think he was going to make our deadline for the next meeting. I think it's tomorrow. And so he didn't think he was going to make it there, but he's working on it.
Good, glad to hear it. And if he doesn't have his plans in for the next deadline, then we can certainly, you know, we can address it at the following meeting. Mrs. Fernandez, questions or comments for us? So we're just here to listen in tonight.
Thank you, Mary Lee, for the update. Yes, it's exactly what is going on. So yeah, I'm here to listen, but that is exactly what's going on. We are working on it.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on 21 Evergreen Drive?
No.
On the commission. Okay. The final discussion would be 95 South Main Street, and I think more accurately it should read 89 South Main Street, because that's where the building is, and 95 is more connected to the property that EPA is using to access their work on the river. So when we did a site visit Saturday at 89 South Main, we talked to Matt Robichaud and a couple of other gentlemen that were there. We took a walk around. There was nothing happening anywhere along the unnamed tributary that looked to us like a violation. There had been a small dirt pile, probably 60 feet from the river, but that was actually pulled away. You know, and there's a new fenced-in area behind what used to be a farm stand, and now that fence is all of 2 weeks old, installed by EPA, and now that that's installed, Mr. Robichaud and his friends there are moving things that were in front to the back, so the front of the property is looking a little cleaner. Again, we didn't say anything that looked like any moving of any kind of natural material or anything else into that tributary. That was flowing fine. You know, just, you know, it looked like a lot of other tributaries. If anybody else has questions or comments on our site visit there on Saturday.
There have been improvements made there. They definitely moved stuff away from the front and close to South Main Street and the river stream front, right? They're right on the edge of where the slope was, and they've moved all that stuff out of there. So I think he said because they're waiting for the fence. I think with the fence, they're going to keep everything locked up now behind the fence.
I took a walk down towards the tributary. I checked out the bank. It was all, there was no fill in there or anything. It was all overgrown. It was all prickers and looked clear.
Yeah. Yep. Marley, any questions?
No, it sounds like you guys did a thorough job.
Yeah, I mucked around in there for a few minutes. I walked down and took a look in a couple of different spots.
Great, so basically no violation.
I didn't say anything.
I don't think
There's
so.
not- That was pointed out in the email that you and I received while you were away on vacation, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. It was sometime in April.
Right, right.
All right, so that's it for discussion. Do we have any updates from you, Marley?
Updates, let me think. I don't think anybody has called with anything. You know, I basically everybody's moving along the way that they're supposed to be. And there's a few things that haven't got started yet. But no, nothing comes to mind. Does anybody have questions?
Anything out of the ordinary with any of our many solar projects?
Amy?
No, the only one that's, oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I don't know, my box never lights up. Can you
Yes.
hear me? Okay. I stopped by 504 Main Street. They had a little plant and sale. I don't know where it is. It has like a little orchard, and they always have things out for sale. Anyway, they're going to have the solar farm behind them, I believe, built, and they're a little concerned because it's right behind their property and it's all woods, and they have is it Keith's made or not Keith's, one across the street, the orchard.
Flying Cloud.
Flying Cloud.
Flying Cloud.
Flying Cloud, I think that's solar farm.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've been having box turtles come down and nest in their gardens, and so they just wondered if you could just. They didn't know what to do. They obviously were kind of concerned. They had turkeys in their backyard. They were feeding chipmunks, and it's like a menagerie in their yard, and they just really loved nature. But they were worried. You know, they're not real happy about the solar farm. They understand they have, you know, they can do what they want to do, but they were worried about the box turtle. So I said I would mention it.
Yeah. Well, that property is going to have a conservation restriction on part of the property. It doesn't have the solar farm on it.
Oh, good.
Yes. And that's for the turtles.
Oh, they don't know that. They would be very.
Yeah,
happy.
that's.
Okay. I have his number. Do you want
Yeah.
to call him, or you want me to call him, or?
Sure. No, I'll call them if you want.
Okay. Because yeah, that make them thrilled to come back. Okay. Great.
Okay.
And we can point out there's going to be a separation between the bottom of the fence and the ground, so the turtles can just walk under the fence too.
Right. I did mention that too. But like this, I guess it's a big open field that they're putting them in. But then the section where they were going to be cutting down, they thought the whole forest right there behind their house. So they would just.
No.
Okay.
Lots of room to walk turtles and chipmunks.
Oh, they were great. They were nice people. Okay.
Cool. All right. Anybody else with business for the commission?
No.
Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, June 22nd, 6 p.m.
In person?
That meeting will happen in person. Unless there's objection, but I think we can do that one in person. That being said, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Bob, excuse me, Mr. Chair, I forgot one thing. We had talked about quickly discussing a hybrid approach if needed.
Right.
Some from home and some in person. Did we?
Yeah, that's actually, so Nick, if you're listening, and Mary Lee, I don't know if folks within in the leadership of this town has discussed the option of meetings like ours being held in a hybrid fashion, in which some are present and some tuning in from home. Do we know if this is a possibility?
I don't know. I haven't heard that one way or the other.
And as far as I know, I don't think there's like many restrictions in terms of meeting, but we can. So what we've done for the selectmen is they have the selectmen at the table, and then if they want people on, they have that board. So we'll put them on like a Zoom call with like who's ever on that board. So it's kind of, you can still interact with people that way and have some people in person if you wanted to do it that way.
What do commission members think?
I think we're gonna need a big room for all the lawyers from Keating and the town and environmental specialists and every.
In cases like that, I think definitely appropriate is hybrid. That way, because some of these folks are way out of town.
Yeah.
And it makes it easy for them to participate without having to drive in, and it means they actually participate and we get answers right away. And I think the hybrid approach is a good one. But I also think that's something we can ask for specifically whenever we're going to advertise for a meeting. If we know that there's not going to be any lawyers involved and everybody's driving in from town, then I don't think we need to use the hybrid. But if there's a specific request for it, or we know there's a need for it, then we can advertise it that way and ask our cable folks to do that.
Right. I think it's a good idea. I just obviously like logistically and the capabilities of Acushnet cable. I mean, microphones and all that other stuff, and then Zoom and people in person, it might be difficult for them. So I'm okay with in person anyways, but this is convenient, So.
Yep. Any chance of getting back into the meeting room?
Is there any chance of getting back into the meeting room?
I'll find out what I can. Yeah.
We'll get an update from Merrill Lee on that between now and the 22nd.
I don't think that's big enough.
I'll find out.
Okay. Any other business from the commission members?
No.
Hey, Everett, as our vice chair, would you like to make a motion to adjourn?
You appointed me somebody. Take a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Meeting adjourned at 7:15 p.m.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.